Today I'm going to show you how to crochet this corner to corner granny square join as you go technique. I will show you how to crochet the granny square itself, but if you already know how to do that, then follow these chapters and leap straight to the second square of the first row where I begin the joining technique. This is certainly a slightly more advanced technique. I would say you definitely need to concentrate with this joining method, and being a confident crocheter will just help you. That's not to say beginners can't do it, but definitely take advantage of the fact that you can replay certain sections of this video just to recap what it is that I'm doing. This is a big old video today, so let's leap straight on in. To begin, pop a slip knot onto your hook. Then chain 4. Join with a slip stitch into that very first chain that you made to form a ring. Chain 4. And then into that ring, we're going to work 3 double crochet stitches to form a granny cluster. So just working straight into that ring, 3 double crochet stitches. It's 1, 2, 3. Then to end this very first section, we're going to end with an extended double crochet stitch. So yarn over, go into that ring, yarn over at the back and draw through a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through the very first loop only. You'll still have 3 loops on your hook, so now you can work off your double crochet as normal. So yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops to complete the stitch. For row 2, chain 4 and turn. Now into this space in between these last 2 stitches, we're going to work a granny cluster of 3 double crochets. So right into this end space here, pop 3 double crochet stitches to form your granny cluster. 1, 2, and 3. Then in this space in between the last 2 stitches on the other side, work a granny cluster, so 3 double crochet stitches. And then end with an extended double crochet. For row 3, start with a chain 4. Turn your work, and just as before, into this space in between these last 2 stitches, work a granny cluster. So you will start every increase row this exact same way. Then work a granny cluster in between the granny clusters from the row below to this space here. Just work your granny cluster, which is 3 double crochet stitches. And then into this very end section in between your last 2 stitches, work a granny cluster, so 3 double crochet. And end with an extended double crochet stitch. This is what will keep your square nice and square and means it won't flare out. I'll show you the increase row one more time. Chain 4 and turn. Pop a granny cluster into the space in between the last 2 stitches of the row below. Then work a granny cluster in between the granny clusters from the row below. Each time you increase, it will grow by 1 extra granny cluster in this central section. So we had just 1 on the row below. Now you can see the spaces here and here, which means we'll have 2 for the increase. Then you would have 3, 4, it just grows exponentially by 1 extra granny cluster. So work your granny clusters into the spaces in between the granny clusters from the row below. Once you've worked your granny clusters in between the granny clusters from the row below, and you're right over here at the very end, into this end space in between the last 2 stitches, work a granny cluster and end with an extended double crochet stitch. So you'll repeat this row, growing by 1 granny cluster for every increase rows until your square is as wide as you want it to be. I'm going to go and crochet 1 more row so I've got a decent sized square to show you the join as you go technique, but you can take your squares however big you want. Start each increase row with a chain 4 and a granny cluster into the same space right at the very beginning. Work your granny clusters into the spaces in between the granny clusters from the row below, and then end with a granny cluster and an extended double crochet stitch into that very last space. Once your square is the width that you want it to be, you can count how many rows you have done by your clusters along the side or this top edge. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll have 5 running up and 5 running across. Once your square is the size that you want it to be, and as I say, you can take it as many rows as you want to, we're going to begin to decrease. So for the decrease rows, when you're ready to decrease, chain 3. We will no longer be chaining 4. You only want to chain 3 and then turn. Now for the increase rows, we've been working into this very outside edge in between those last 2 stitches. Now we're going to skip it entirely. So you're going to skip the first 4 stitches and work a granny cluster into the space in between the granny clusters from the row below, not into this outside edge. So skip these 4 and work a granny cluster into the space. So you completely skip this outside edge. Now work a granny cluster in between your granny clusters from the row below. Your granny clusters will now shrink by 1 on the decrease rows, whereas they were growing on the increase rows. Now we start to shrink. So I'm just working my 3 double crochet granny clusters along this row. And then when you get to the other side, we're going to work just 1 stitch into this very outside edge. So the space in between these last 2 stitches, work 1 extended double crochet. So no granny clusters into this side section, just an extended double crochet stitch. So you can see we're going to start working back to a point to square this off. For the remaining decreased rows, they're much simpler. Chain 3, turn, ignore this first space on the edge and work a granny cluster in between the granny clusters from the row below. Completely ignore that side first space. Then when you have run out of spaces in the middle section for working your granny clusters, because you only work your granny clusters in between 2 from the row below, when you've reached the other side, this gap on the other side over here, this chain space, work an extended double crochet stitch, just the 1. Keep repeating that very last row. So chain 3, turn, skip this edge space, work a granny cluster in between your granny clusters from the row below. And work an extended double crochet into that very last chain space. Now for the very, very final row of this corner to corner granny square, when you have got down to just 1 granny cluster that you've made, we want to match this top edge to this bottom edge down here. So for that very, very final end bit, chain 1, turn and work a double crochet into this end chain space. Not an extended double crochet, just a normal granny crochet stitch. Then chain 1, cut your yarn, leaving a tail to weave in. Oh, what on earth has happened to my yarn there? Oh dear, just as well we're right at the end. Pull this through, take your hook out, pull it tight, and then you can go ahead and weave in your ends. So this will be my very first square, which I want to join. Now, it is worth popping a stitch marker into the very start where you did your chain 4 and join to make a ring. It's worth popping this stitch marker in, just into that corner. That way you will know as your blanket grows that this is the bottom right hand corner of your blanket. So if you're ever working on your project and you put it away and then a few weeks later you drag it back out again, you will always know that this is the bottom right hand square. That way you'll know which way to be joining these squares when you pick your project back up again. If you want to weave in your ends at this point, you absolutely can. I'm just going to quickly weave in this top yellow end so that it's not getting in the way when I'm trying to teach you this slightly complicated technique. I'm not doing anything special here. I'm just running this yarn back down that stitch, and I'm going to send it off down over here. You be far neater than me when you are weaving in your ends. This is just a sample piece. It's never going to be used as a blanket, so I'm being quite rough and ready. So now, having marked that bottom corner, I know that that is the bottom right of my blanket. So I can put it back the right way. Then I'm going to grab my next colour and we're going to work on the bottom row of your blanket. So for joining your second square, and for every square along the very bottom row of your blanket, don't forget, we know it's the bottom of the blanket because of this stitch marker, we are going to join along one side of these squares. So we join on this side as we form the next square. So you want to count how many clusters wide and tall your square is. For me, I'm 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wide, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tall. So all my squares that I'm joining need to be 5 clusters. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 increase rows. Now yours, count how many you have. You may have 6, 7, 8, however many you have. Just remember that magic number. And for this very first row, this bottom row of your blanket, we'll be joining to one side of the square that's already been made. So because I know I have 5 clusters, I can count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and into the chain space on my very last increase row when I was making it, I'm going to pop my hook in there. This is the side we're going to join our next square to. So get your yarn for your next square, and we're going to attach it to the square however you like to attach your squares. Now I'm just going to pop a slip knot onto my hook, and I'm going to draw that loop to the front. Now before we start, this is very much a trust the process connection method. It can be a bit complicated to start. Once you've done it a few times and once you've practiced it, it becomes second nature. But when you are first learning this method, you really do need to just trust the process until it clicks. So when you're ready to join your next square, you've already attached your yarn. We're going to chain 1 and single crochet into the same space. Now chain 4 and turn your work. We're just flipping it around. Then join with a slip stitch to that single crochet that you made, so we form a little ring. So we've got a little ring that we can work the stitches into. Now this is the joining side. You can see I've flipped it completely. So we are immediately going to start joining our work before we crochet the rest of the square. So to do that, we need to replace the initial chaining that you would do for the beginning of your row. And we replace that with chain 1, single crochet into the next chain space, the side of the square we're joining to. We're just going to pop a single crochet in there. And then chain 2. Now that replaces your chain 4 that you would normally start the row with. Then turn your work, just flip it back around again, and you can see we have attached to this yellow square. Then into this chain 4 ring that you've formed, we're going to work the rest of this very first row of your corner to corner granny, and that is 3 double crochet, so a granny cluster, and end with an extended double crochet stitch. Now we are not joining to anything on this side or this side. We're only joining to this yellow side. So for everything that happens on this side, you work your corner to corner granny just as you would if we weren't attaching it. It's only when we come to this attaching side that we have to adapt either the starting or the ending stitch. So for your second row, crochet as normal, chain 4, turn and work your granny cluster into the space in between those last 2 stitches because we're increasing. I have a knot in my yarn. That's fine. We can work with that. So I've done my first increase, and now because it's only row 2, we are immediately over to the joining side. So into this space in between the joining stitch and the granny cluster from the row below, work a granny cluster. So that's just 3 double crochets. Now we need to attach on this last stitch. Now this is a bit of an odd stitch. I don't really have a name for it. So watch what I do and we'll just call it the joining stitch. So on the very last stitch of this second row, when you hit the bit where you want to join to, because if we straighten it up, that's where we're going to join. Where you would normally work an extended double crochet to finish this second row, we're going to start that way. So yarn over, go into that same space, drop a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through 1 loop. Now we're going to join. So into this next chain space, working up the side of the square that we're joining to, pop your hook in, just that next one up, and draw through a loop. So you'll have 4 loops on your hook, and we are attaching to this next chain space up on this yellow square. When you have your 4 loops, yarn over and pull through the first 3 of them. So yarn over, pull through 3. You'll have 2 loops left on your hook, yarn over and pull through those 2. So we have joined with the extended double crochet stitch. Now whenever we join, we are going to be joining immediately to the next row as we move up a row. So you can see I've got 1, 2, this is the back of my work. And to get to the next one, we need to move up a space to create the next row. So chain 1, we're replacing the chain 4 that you would normally start your next row with, and we're replacing that with a chain 1, single crochet into the next chain space that you're joining to, and then chain 2. So just as before at the very start, chain 1, single crochet, chain 2 replaces the chain 4 that you would normally start your next row with. Then turn your work and into the space in between the last granny cluster and that joining stitch of the row below, work 3 double crochet for your granny cluster, and then complete as normal. We're not joining anything, so a granny cluster into the next space, and then to end the row, we're going to end with a granny cluster and an extended double crochet stitch. To start your next increase row, we've got 1, 2, 3, and I need 5 in total. Just as normal, we're not attaching to anything over here. So chain 4, turn, and work your way to this joining section over here. Once you reach this very end space, into that end space, work a granny cluster. And normally we would end on an extended double crochet stitch, but we're on a joining side, so we're going to end with that extended double crochet joining stitch. So that's yarn over, go into this end space here, draw up a loop, yarn over, draw through one loop. Then go into the next chain space on the side that you are joining to, pop your hook in and pull through a loop. So you will have 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through the first 3 of those loops, and then yarn over and draw through the final 2. So whenever we are joining on the end of a row where you would normally put your extended double crochet, we substitute it out for this joining stitch. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. I need 5, so I'm going to have another increased row. Now, if you are doing your granny squares with an even number of clusters, so 4, 6, 8, 12, however big you've taken them, you will end your increased rows on one of these joining stitches. Now, if you do have an even number of clusters on your granny squares and you've ended on this joining stitch, from this point on, if you only had your 4 like this and you have joined the right amount of clusters together, you have the exact same amount of granny clusters high. At this point you would begin your decrease rows. I'll show you those quickly now just to save any confusion you may have. So you would chain 3 for decreasing with an even number of clusters on your squares. You would chain 3, turn your work and begin the decrease. And to do that, you would skip this entire first section and just work a granny cluster into the next space. You would continue the decreasing, so you would work your granny clusters, and then in the very end space you would work your extended double crochet stitch only, and you would keep going back and forth decreasing until you'd completed your granny square. That's on an even number of clusters. I, however, have an odd number of clusters, so I'm back to where I joined, and because I have an odd number, I still need to attach to this first square with another increased row. So because of that, I'm substituting the join where I'd normally do a chain 4 and turn. Because we're on a joining side, I'm substituting that chain 4 for chain 1, single crochet into the last space of that square I'm joining to, chain 2 and turn. Then, as I am still increasing, I'd work my granny cluster in between the joining stitch and the last double crochet cluster, granny cluster of the row below. So now I can complete my corner to corner granny square as normal. I am fully done. I have 5 clusters high, 5 clusters high on my new one, and they are all joined. So now I continue my granny square without joining to anything. I'm still on an increase row, so in this very last space I still work my increase, which is the 3 double crochet stitches followed by that extended double crochet stitch. And now I would begin my decrease rows because I have my odd number and they're all attached. So to decrease, chain 3, turn your work, skip this very first cluster section here and go straight into granny clusters. So from this point on, I'm now just squaring off this corner to corner granny square. Because I am on a decrease, my first decrease row, with my odd number of clusters, I work my extended double crochet stitch to finish into this joining section. Now, if you are on a odd number or an even number for this very last one, if you're joining it to where it was joined, that's the space in between the joining stitch area and the granny cluster is where you work your first decrease stitch of the extended double crochet. Then you continue until this second square is finished. So for every single square along the bottom row of your project will be joined the same way you joined this pink square. So repeat this pink square over and over until your project is as wide as you want it to be. Now for the second row, I like my diagonals on my corner to corner grannies. When they're joined, I like one row to go one way and then the next row to go the next way. So it goes back and forth. So I have the zigzags going this way for one row and then this way for the next row. If you also like that look, then we need to start row 2 on the opposite side to where we did row 1. If you just want everything going in the same diagonal direction, then you would start row 2 on your right hand side of your project over here. But I like to start on the left hand side. So here is my final square of my project, and I'm going to go ahead and join row 2 to this end corner space. So you will all have ended on this section here. So just as you did with the pink square, we're going to join into this left hand corner space because I want my diagonals going in that direction. I personally think it really highlights the diagonal of the square when you have it almost looking like a zigzag all the way up your project, but it's entirely personal preference. So for the first square of your second row, we're going to be joining on this bottom edge. So you've been joining up the sides for the row below. We're going to do pretty much exactly the same thing, only we're going to be joining to this bottom edge. So just as you have all your squares, join your yarn single crochet into that space, chain 4, turn your work and slip stitch to that single crochet to form your little ring. Then we are immediately going to be joining just as you did, just in a different direction. Immediately join to the top edge rather than the side. Now you'll have the same amount of clusters, the same rules apply as for your pink square. We're just working in a slightly different direction. So just as you have been doing, and I'm sure you are a pro by this stage after joining all of the row 1 squares, chain 1, single crochet into this next chain space, and then chain 2. So for this first square of this second row, the only thing that is really different to your row 1 joining is where we end on this last section. So if you're confident with this side joining, go ahead and just skip forward to this point here where I show you how to end the joining on these mid-row stages, because it is different to this very bottom row. If you're not fully confident and you want me to talk you through it, I'm here for you. This may be a long video, but I'd rather be thorough. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you every row just as I did on the pink square. So now we've got our substitute chain 4, which is just joined. We're going to turn the work and into that chain 4 space, work your 3 double crochets and your extended double crochet stitch. Now again, we're nothing to join to on this side or this top section, so we're going to start as normal and we are just joining on this dark blue side. So we're going to start our grannies as normal, and the only bits we really need to concentrate on are the joining sections. So into this chain space at the end, I'm going to work my granny cluster, and then because it is the end of my row rather than the start, I'm going to end with that special joining stitch. So yarn over, drop a loop, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 1, then insert your hook into the next joining space, draw up a loop. You'll have 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 3 loops, then yarn over and pull through those final 2. Now because I'm still joining, because I'm still increasing, I'm going to chain 1, single crochet into the next chain space on the joining square, and chain 2. That's my chain 4 substitute for starting the row. Then turn it, and in between the joining stitch and your granny cluster, work a granny cluster. And then complete the square, this row, as normal. We're not joining to anything. We're just steadily increasing. So as you can see, my cluster's going one way. Now they are going this way. So I'm starting with chain 4, turn, working my granny cluster, then I'm going to work all the way down to that joining side. Now, as I say, this is pretty much the same. This first square on row 2 is pretty much the same as how you've been joining the squares in row 1, apart from how we join the very last section. So where we join 2. So continue joining until you have the 1 cluster short of how many you need. So I've got 3, I need 4, 5. So at row 4, if you were carrying on without me, stop there and I'll show you where to end that very final join before you start your decrease. But for everyone else, we're still here, we're still going. I've got my granny cluster into that space where we join. And then, instead of ending on an extended double, we're going to end on that bizarre joining stitch, which I don't really have a name for. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, this is going to be my last row of increasing. So I have 4 rows. So this final row is going to be my final joining, my final increase row. So my final join, for me, I do the substitute chain 4, so chain 1 and then single crochet. Now here is the difference as to where we join the very last join of row 2 and all the other squares moving forwards. We are not going to work into this chain space here. This is the obvious chain space. This is the chain space of my final increase row of this blue square, and it's the chain space we've been joining to for all of that first row, this sort of into the edge. The very final stitch for joining is going to go in the join space, not into the side of your granny square. So not in here, we're going to join into that joining space. So where we attach to join, I'm going to put my single crochet in there. Now, if you were ending on a even number of clusters, you'd have that joining stitch. You would end it in there too. So we're joining into the join, not into the side of your granny square. So I have to finish my increase row. So my chain 2, do my final increase, finish this row. If you're doing an even numbered square, then you will be onto the decrease from this part. So you can see that final stitch goes into the join, not into the edge of this blue square. So I'm going to go ahead now and finish up this square. I'm done joining. I have 5 clusters. They're joined to the 5 on this blue row. I'm just going to go ahead, finish up this square, and then I'm ready to join the second square of row 2. Now, for the second square and all the squares that are in the middle, the main body of your project, we're going to join them on 2 sides. So I'm going to show you how you do this second square, and this second square is the one you will repeat all the way across until you get to the very final edge square, which I will show you after I've shown you this main one here. This second square of the second row is the most tricksy. Trust the process. So we're going to grab our next colour of yarn, and we're going to join it into the same place where you just ended your other square. So the last square was joined into the join that was created with the blue square below. We're going to join our yarn into that exact same place. So not into this side space of the square, but into the join space where this red one is connected, right in there. Just as before, join your yarn however you prefer. And we are going to be joining to the red side and this pale pink side at the same time. So as we go, we're going to be joining to pink and red. So into this section, this joining section where you joined your red square, pop a single crochet, chain 4, and turn your work. Then, just as you have been doing, slip stitch into the top of that single crochet to form a ring. Now we're going to join to the pink and to the red, then to the red, back to the pink on each row. Chain 1, and now we're going to skip this very first chain space, the one where you have joined to from the row below. Skip this first chain space of your square, and we're going to join to the second chain space, the one after this cluster row, this one here, not this one, this one. And into this second space, pop your single crochet and chain 2. Now it may look a little odd to begin with. Trust the process. Now turn, we're just going to flip everything back around again. So we have joined to the pink square. Now work your 3 double crochets into that chain 4 ring. And now we're joining to this red square. So instead of ending on an extended double crochet, we're going to join. So yarn over, pull up a loop, 3 loops, yarn over, draw through 1. Then, just as we did a second ago, skip this very first chain space. And we're going to join to the second. Skip, join. To pop your hook in there and draw up a loop. 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 3. Yarn over, pull through 2. So you are ignoring that first chain space on both the pink square and the red. Once you have that sorted, now we're going to join as we go. So chain 1, single crochet into the next chain space of the red square, then chain 2 and turn. That's my substitute chain 4 for starting the row. Work your granny cluster in between those 2 stitches. And then into this space on the other side, work your granny cluster. and then your joining stitch. So we've skipped these corner spaces. Keep going. Chain 1, single crochet into the next chain space on the pink square, chain 2, and turn everything. Flip it all around. Work your granny cluster in between those last 2 stitches. Granny cluster into the middle, into that space, in between the granny clusters from the row below. Then we're over to the red side, so into this end space, work your granny cluster. And end with your joining stitch. Just working into the next chain space. 1, 2, 3. I need 5. So I'm going to keep going. Chain 1, single crochet into that next space. Chain 2. It's my substitute chain 4, and turn. I'm still increasing, so I will increase in that space at the end with my granny cluster. Work my granny clusters in between the sets of clusters from the row below. Then I'm back to a joining side, because of course we're joining the 2 at the same time. So into that end space, I'm going to work my 3 double crochet. And then I'm going to work my joining stitch. I have one more section to join. And just as we did on the red square, skip this end space of the pale pink square itself and join in the join. So where I did my join between the yellow and the pink, that is where I put my final stitch. So you're skipping that end space just as you did on the red one. Skip it, chain 2, turn, I'm going to complete, that's my pink side fully joined. I've got one more, this is still, I'm working on an increase row, so pink side fully joined. Red side, not yet. I'm going to keep going, working my granny clusters up the side. I'm going to go as quick as I can so this video isn't 3.5 years long. Then I'm back to my joining side, so I'll do my 3 double crochet stitches for my granny cluster. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to end with my joining stitch. Now the end is worked into this space just as we did on row 1, just straight into that very last space that we have. Do my joining stitch here, it's only on this bottom edge that we are skipping these spaces. On the top edge you'll be neatly joined at the top. So just double check you have the right amount. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all joined. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all joined. Now I can do my decrease. I'm done joining. I can just decrease my square. So for every square in the middle of your project, you will simply repeat exactly what we did on this second square. You'll do that all the way along. You will join your yarn for the next one into the same place where you finished your last one, and repeat this second square. Now, when you reach the very outside edge of your blanket, and you are doing the last square of that row, repeat this second square right up until the very last section, because we're going to change where we do that join. This very final join changes on this bottom square. I'm going to show you that right now. So I'm working on the very last square on the right hand edge of my project. Obviously I'm looking at the back of it now, but here is that little stitch marker. I've come right to the very end square. I have been repeating exactly what I was doing for this blue square, the second one. The only difference is that when I come to do my very final join, it's in this last corner space of the square itself. So you'll have your 3 double crochets and your final stitch here of that increase row on the yellow square, this corner. You need to pull it out. I'm going to join there for the outside edge. So on all these other ones, all these middle ones, you have skipped finding that little space and you have joined into the join. You haven't joined into that corner section. Gone into the join on this very, very last outside edge. You'll be joined into that corner section. For row 3 onwards, you simply repeat this second row. The only difference is you're going to alternate where you start. So for row 2, we started on the left-hand side to get the diagonals going in this direction. For row 3, you would start on the right-hand side to get the diagonals going back in that direction. So you would join your yarn to this side rather than this side. So alternate between which side you join on if you want this back and forth zigzag effect that I love so much. So you, for row 3, would repeat this red square. Row 3 in the middle would repeat this square. You'll just simply be joining on the other side. So as you come along this way, we joined on these 2 sides. Coming back this way, you would join on these 2 sides. Exactly the same technique, exactly the same process. You're just changing direction. So as you can see, it works up beautifully, particularly on sort of like a patchwork type blanket like this one is. So it's just quite large granny squares all joined together. And as a border, I have just done a really simple few rounds of half double crochets. I worked the sides of the main squares in exactly the same way I show you in this tutorial here, which will be linked down below and will have popped up on a little eye up here for you. But it's a fantastic technique. I mean, look at this, it's lovely. It's front and back, I can't get this whole thing in shot because it's massive. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. It is a bit tricky. I'm not going to lie, it's a bit tricky, but once you get into the swing of it and the rhythm of it and you spot the bits to skip and you know where to join, it's really, really quick and it gives this lovely, lovely join. Now this blanket has not been blocked, and yet where my squares in the middle of my blanket join each other, they pull themselves out so beautifully square. I love it. I hope you love it too. So until next time, happy crocheting. Bye.